Welcome to Cancer and Peace. My name is Sean Stewart, and we're going to have a conversation with my good friend Peter Scalzo, the host of Cancer and Peace. And today we want to just kick off on a topic that we both felt, and I think we're thinking as you're going into this episode, we think will be out at the end of the holiday season. We're hoping between Christmas and New Year's, and there's something important that has happened in most of our lives, and that is, have you ever felt overwhelmed? The feeling of overwhelmed, and what does that do to you, and what does it do to your peace? And so I think we were going to just describe a bit about our own journeys in this space, and then talk about how to find peace in the midst of that kind of storm. And so for you kicked off saying in December,
it robs my peace.
It robs your peace. Yeah.
So I was telling Sean earlier that December is my least favorite month. It should be a great month for me, but it's not. And I think it's because in the past, for 23 years, I practiced law, and I did a type of law that gets very busy at the end of the year doing real estate closings and things like that for clients. So I was very busy, and I was always involved with lots of demands, and I was definitely a yes man. Didn't like to say the word no. I've learned since then in my codependency to be better about that. So I would try to please everyone. And then politically, I was involved in a lot of stuff, and they wanted to get stuff done by the end of the year. Then at church, I was involved in a lot of ministry stuff that wanted to do stuff at the end of the year. Then you have to factor in meals and parties. And for my 6 kids, there were all kinds of musicals and plays and things like that I had to go to. And then on top of that, I was thinking through the years, I usually always had something medically that was highly significant during the month of December, factoring into all this stuff. And it was usually a scan that I was concerned about, a procedure, one-time surgery in the hospital, and always like doctor's visits and all kinds of stuff going on in the month. And I always, this was the month where I had to, telling Sean, call people back to apologize for a rude and impatient answer because I was overwhelmed. And even this year, 2023, this month, as December rolled around, I felt this tightness, weight, burden, tension happening within me. And I was like, wow. I figured maybe because I had my procedure in the hospital last month, I had my infusion last month, and I thought I just have 1 or 2 doctor's appointments this month, post-surgical, those kinds of things, but I have a physical, but not anything monumental. And yet I feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's a great share. And so as you shared that with me earlier, it struck up feelings. And so you gave a kind of a long-term December as you feel it, you know it's coming. And I was thinking I have some long-term ones myself, but I wanted to share something in the short-term category because that's what relates to me, just to kind of give a flavor of, so I think this is a human condition, but and certainly for people who are going through a cancer journey, there's a lot going on inside of your body that it's worth exploring and knowing about, because this feeling of overwhelmedness is real. And for me, I was just sharing just yesterday, we have staff meetings. So we have staff meetings every Tuesday, and we usually record on Wednesdays here. So we had a staff meeting, and usually our staff meetings are from 9 to 10. So it's an hour long, and we're fairly good. Maybe sometimes it rolls a little bit over. So yesterday's staff meeting, though, was at 10:30. We were still going. It was important business. We were covering stuff, and about 10:35 or so, I'm like, oh, I could feel it. It was just like inside of me, it had built up. It was like, can we finish this meeting? And we usually close, like we'll take prayer requests and we'll, talk about what's going on, and we'll close in prayer. And I'm like, can we pray and get this over with? That feeling is like, and so it was a feeling that was building up inside of me. It was just like, hey, that pressure, that tension of we're way long and there's a lot going on. And I was thinking about this, and we've learned a little bit. I remember thinking about Pete Scazzaro talking about how he schedules meetings throughout the day as a leader, And for those of you guys who may not remember, or I'm sure a lot of you that'll strike a bell, but he is the author of Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, and he was a senior pastor and leader for many years. And so he would have a lot of meetings, and he would share about scheduling meetings throughout the day, and he had a practice of putting time distance between the two meetings. And so I was sharing with a good buddy of mine this morning about this. I had 3 meetings that got put in a row, and by the 3rd meeting, I was snapping at people. I was not able to be emotionally I wasn't able to emotionally regulate, and it had nothing to do with them. It was all about something that was going on inside of me. And it's that feeling of overwhelmness
Mm.
that by meeting 3, I was done. Or if a meeting's going to go an hour and 40 minutes, my internal regulation, my feelings of overwhelmness really are kicking in. And it's something
Mm.
that's really like boiling up. I can feel it in my body. It's like the tension, the need to just get this over with, or that kind of feeling of I've had enough
Mhm.
is going on inside of me. And so I'm going to bet that for most of our audience, I know that that resonates with you because
Mhm.
you worked in the law practice. You probably had some very similar experiences,
Mhm.
that resonates with
Mhm.
people around here.
Yeah, and I had a cancer support group meeting this past Sunday, and we gathered, and I asked the question, "How do you find peace during this month
Yeah.
when it's so overwhelming?" So it was interesting because a lot of them were on very difficult cancer journeys.
Yeah.
We had a great discussion about it, and I think just one of the things that I'll say is that, and it was mostly women, but they said to definitely feel the emotion even if it's negative. That was
Yeah.
one thing that they said.
Yeah. I think something that I'll recognize in myself is sometimes I'm feeling the emotion, but I'm not um, identifying that I'm feeling it, if that makes sense. In other words, I
Mhm.
can feel the
Sure.
tension, I can feel the but
Mhm.
then I'm responding to the emotion, not responding to the signal of the emotion. And I think
Mm.
that's where I'd like to divide a little bit, is that emotion does mean something. That feeling of overwhelmness does mean
Mm.
something. It's my whole person crying out for something. And it's not to be able to snap at people. It's, hey, there's something inside of me that, in a sense, is being stepped on or violated in this moment. Or there, that is, I mean, the feeling of overwhelmedness is something signaling something real, a real need. I think is. Does that resonate with you? I guess in that
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Mhm.
I like the way you started out because you said, "Hey, your body is storing an
Mm.
understanding of December means high, high demand for your time
Mm.
and high expectations for your time."
Yes, great. And some of those expectations are from me for sure. But yes, even before I intellectualized it, I knew what was going on. My body was tensing up.
Yeah, yeah, and I have a similar something in that space, and that is we would do summer camps here
Mm.
every year, and summer camp meant that we were going to have a 2.5 month really intense period of time where we were going to bring in 50 to 100 staff, and we would train the staff for 2 weeks, and then we would go 24/7 for 8 weeks.
Mm.
And that 24/7 for 8 weeks was 24/7 of intense something. And usually by week 4, the all um the fun, we're throwing the ball around, playing volleyball in the field, or just the excitement had gone away. And it was, oh, I can see everybody's character defects. And I got 4 more weeks of putting up with certain people here who's rubbing me raw a little bit. And what that did is that every time we would roll up on a summer, after the first 2 or 3, I felt it coming.
Mm.
So I would think that what you're talking about is I could feel it coming. It was like the pressure of, this is going to be 2 months, or 2.5 months of just solid, you know 24/7, just interacting with people, trying to make sure the wheels don't fall off, everything comes together, that we do great program, we hire all the staff, we like, there's so much that goes into
Mhm.
a short term, something where you're running solid like that. And when I say 24/7, when you have people sleeping over, you have to have coverage for
Mm.
all that. You have to have, it's not that I was working 24/7, we're running a 24/7 operation.
Mm.
You know, the kids are going to go home on one day and they're going to come back the next, and we're going to keep going. And what happened was, is my body started storing the traumatic expectations that were coming of the stress that I was going to feel. And as I was knew I was going to feel that stress, then overwhelmed. I felt overwhelmed every time we were moving towards summer for the same reasons that you're talking about. That your body is saying, "Hey, we're at December, and it expects that there's trauma coming of some type, traumatic, that's making you feel overwhelmed." That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by this, and so the question is going to be, well, what do we do with
Right.
that?
Right.
And so I'm guessing that you just said something that you heard from your cancer support buddies, that that first part step I think is
Yeah.
probably important.
Yeah. I think to feel those emotions, to let them bubble up, and to express them, of course, not let them rule over you. But I think one of the things that came up, and I've been asked this several times before, is, how do you get through the journey? And my response was always to have patience. Besides acceptance and those, in fact, patience really is enveloped within acceptance, but it's this almost like settling in, saying, okay, I my reality is that I'm going to have to do cancer stuff during the month of December. And yet I'm still expected to be at a holiday function, or, I'm going to celebrate whatever holiday you celebrate. But for me, Christmas and New Year's with my family. And yet I have to do serious health, things.
Mm-hmm.
So can I accept that, and can I be patient? And can I sort of walk through these medical tests or surgeries, whatever I have going on, infusions, um, even though there's demands whirling around me, can I experience peace and patience as I do the cancer stuff? I think because the cancer stuff represents a whole nother layer of life. It's this
Can I
time of the years.
propose?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Can I propose that as a step
Yeah,
two? Because I
yeah.
like that. What you
Okay.
said is
Yeah,
that's
go.
good. No, I think that's really good. But you said step one in one sense, and that is you can't heal what hasn't been revealed.
Hmm.
And so as you start to recognize, as you hear, we always do in recovery, we say, hey, and what you heard, what did you relate to and why? And
Hmm.
so if you related to something that either Peter or I said here about your own, coming into times of where high stress and what your body starts feeling, this something that's overwhelmed, it's like first, it's something's been revealed to you. And
Hmm.
I think that starting point is um, feeling it, and then identifying what it is you're feeling. So it's one thing to feel it and then just let it, your natural coping mechanisms go out. But if you feel and then identify why you're feeling, this becomes a really healthy first part of this journey, I think,
Hmm.
in this space. And then you said something that's really good, and that's this, why I'm calling it step two is patience. Means I'm going to give time to this.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm going to give space for this.
Yes.
And for me, I think my buddy who I was sharing my last 2 or 3 days story with, he was like, "So when you talked about having multiple meetings in a row, have you changed how you do things?" And my answer was no. And so that means every time I go through this, when I get to meeting number three, I'm not going to be fully present,
Hmm.
and I'm going to be working out of a frustrated self as opposed to a really present. Caring, empathetic self. I'm going to be more likely an angry, frustrated self, which isn't going to be really productive for the people that I'm meeting with, likely. And, and I thought that's point. So this idea of patience. So what I'm interpreting from what you're saying, and I was thinking about as he was questioning me, I was like, yeah, I got to make a change here,
Hmm.
and the change is I need to take time and not allow myself to be scheduled back to back to back without
Hmm.
having time to decompress, process. And it's different for, because most of the meetings that I lead, because I lead an organization, about 90% of those meetings I lead.
Hmm.
And so that means I'm feeling the pressure of driving the agenda and making sure that we're staying on track and moving forward. So it's not something I can just sit back and and
Mhm.
let the conversation just digest. I'm having to think about where are we going with this meeting? Where is it?
Mhm.
Are we getting to accomplish the purposes of it? And so there's a lot of I'm taking on a lot of stress,
Right.
relational stress of trying to drive something. And my point to that is only that that means I have to actually have time to stop and not feel that stress and pressure, and to rest my nervous system and my body, and to decompress. And so the next
Mhm.
step is what you said is patience in that. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
and perhaps, one of the other points is what can I take off my plate? Like, for instance, in this month, December, I live by myself. I'm single, and yet it's the first Christmas, first holiday season in my new home, and I'll have 5 of my 6 kids there and my granddaughter. So I had my kids decorate. I had them put up the tree, put the ornament, like do all that kind of stuff to take it off my plate. I also used Amazon to buy Christmas presents so I could sit in the comfort of my home, and I did it early.
Yeah.
So the presents are just kind of flowing coming in. So I don't feel the pressure of having to go. I'm not a shopper. I don't enjoy shopping.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to take some things off my plate that I do have control over like that.
Yeah, we did something similar this year, which was a great stress reliever. Was for the larger family. We, in the past, we've been buying gifts for
Mhm.
the for our kids and so forth. And we said, let's do a Secret Santa.
Yeah. Yeah.
That means you're going to find one gift for one person.
Yeah.
The grandkids, we're going to make sure that they, that's but for everybody that's in this next layer family, one gift, one person.
Mhm.
And so I'm not spending a bunch of my mental energy and stress trying to think
Mhm.
about all the different people of how to do that.
Right.
But can we have a great time as a family still celebrating
Right.
Christmas, and can we still give gifts and enjoy that part of the season? Yes.
Yeah, because there are things that bring me life. One of them is walking. I
Yeah.
do like a therapy walk,
Can you go back before you do that? I want to
Yeah.
ask you, would you share, because you shared something and there every one of us, but what are some negative ways for dealing with this? Because you shared, hey, I'm not always positive in this too. What are some negative ways that we might approach this? Because when you feel that and you don't process it, what happens?
You mean like what do I retreat to or coping mechanisms or that sort of thing? Or
Yes,
is
or what
that
do you cut out? I was even thinking of that space more. It's like, so in other words,
yeah.
when we get to a period of time where things
Oh,
are
oh yeah.
really packed, what is it
Yeah.
that we lose first
So
sometimes?
those practices in my life that bring me joy and peace and life. Like I
Yeah.
noticed this season I've been cutting out my silence and solitude has been a big one that I haven't been. I get up in the morning and I start running because I feel frantic.
Yes.
I've been cutting that one out.
Yeah, that's such a big thing, is like recognizing
Yeah.
that there's always a equation that has to come to 24 hours.
Yep.
Where did you spend your
Right.
time? And it always has to equal 24 hours every day. And
Mhm.
that means if we're getting the squeeze and we allow that squeeze to happen to us, that means something else has to be adjusted.
Right.
And I found that happens to me a lot, is that squeeze makes me really tempted to, well, this is the area that I have that's easiest for me to
Right.
say, I'll squeeze that down a little bit.
Yeah, and I think if you're in a situation that you cannot like I think about my stepmom right now is taking care of my 91-year-old dad, right? Her life has significantly changed
Hmm.
because he needs full-time care. Yes, he has some home health aides, but not all the time. And so I was thinking if I was her, I would try to incorporate my silence and solitude, but it may look differently than it does now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's ways I can incorporate those things that bring me peace and life and joy, but it may look different.
Yeah. I think this is important. There's things that you can't drop. And I think
Right.
when you think about a cancer and peace, having cancer, not going to treatment doesn't seem like a great option,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
you really get down to there's certain things that have been added that you can't subtract.
Right.
And so the big question is going to be, and I think it's where you're getting ready to go a bit, even what your practices are,
Yeah.
is how do you still work into finding peace
Right.
when you're feeling overwhelmed? What are some tools? And so I use the example for me is, hey, I think I need to put some space between meetings and events to allow my body to decompress so I can be present at the next one.
Hmm.
But that may mean adding time.
Hmm.
Now you're talking about, hey, but I can't add time in certain cases. And talking about your own practices that you're doing, that'll be a great place to.
Yeah. So I love to walk. Now I have been squeezing in walks. I have been doing that. But my spiritual practices, I mean, walks for me can be spiritual, very much
Mhm.
so, but my spiritual practices of like silence and solitude, that's been struggling and suffering for this month. So those are the ones that I want to get back to, those kinds of things. I think I can be better at saying no to things that it's sort of like the good, better, best. Like,
Mhm.
what's my, what are those things that I have to do for myself that's best? Some things may be good or better, but not best. And can I not do those things? Like, there's some musical events and things that I wanted to do, but I said no to them because my my personal uh, time space that I need, my self care space was being so compromised. So
Mhm.
those are the little decisions, dilemmas that I personally struggle with, but I have to make, and usually in favor of self care. That's the thing that's so difficult for me for this month is everything seems so important, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, if I'm putting three steps out there,
Yeah,
but so now it's like
yeah,
first step you is feel it, learn how to feel it, find out what it is that you're actually feeling, and understand the why a bit. The second step is take time to be patient with yourself, and then the third step is going to be, well, hey, if you are compressed or in time, and it's going to be you're going to have to be intentional about your choices.
hmm,
That good, better, best is a great thing to think about. It's like, hey,
yeah,
is this what's going to be best? And I think so much times of our lives we just allow a series of decisions to carry out and not plan well enough. And for most of our listeners, when you have the extra pressure of a cancer journey and medical appointments and the things that are happening, you're going to have to make really conscious choices, and sometimes you're going to have to say no to a lot of good stuff so that you can actually be and consume what's best.
yeah. I usually tell cancer patients, I'm like, this is your time to be selfish. But what I really mean is, this is your time for self care.
Yeah.
And even download some stuff to your family, like making meals and those kinds of things. This is a time for you to focus on your health and on reflection and peace,
And part of
solitude,
part of
life.
healing is this whole uh, is your whole person
Yes.
too. And so
Yep.
I'm not trying to put out a healing method, but it's recognizing is similar to if I'm rushing around.
Hmm.
This idea of anytime I'm rushing,
Hmm.
I'm probably not at the center of what God has for me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to accomplish something that I feel an internal stress or pressure on.
Yeah.
Because I've come to the belief, and it's been a long time to get that God's ways are slow ways.
Mm.
And so, this concept of a slowed down spirituality, a slowed
Hmm.
down life, I think that might be the call for a lot of what we're being asked to go into. And so, rather than it being, the hardships that we're going through right now, rather than that being a just another thing to add on, it's probably for most of us, it has been for me,
Hmm.
a call to slow down
Mm.
and to let go of some things and to trust God with certain things and not try to overmanage and to let others
Yeah.
minister and be a part and to be a little bit more humble by asking for help.
So just in line with that, one of our gals in the Christian support group, she has two sons in their 20s. She's a single woman, and she's in a tough cancer space right now, getting treatment, and had to have a brain scan and that kind of thing, metastatic cancer. But she is a mom, and she wanted the perfect Christmas kind
Mm.
of thing, you know, but she's struggling. And her sons, I think she had a conversation with her two sons in their 20s, and they came to her and said, all we want is you.
Yeah.
So they're more than willing and want to pitch in, be helpful, they can do the cooking, whatever, you know what I mean? But what was really important to them was having their mom there.
I was gonna say that's brings up. I can remember my last Christmas with my mom before she passed from cancer,
Yeah.
And it wasn't the things that we did or perfection; it was presence
Yeah.
that made all the difference. So presence is such a big thing, and that's probably the big message on the backside of this is thinking about how to be present. And whenever you're not able to be present in the moment, there's probably something else motivating you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why overwhelmness is such a interesting thing to explore in ourselves is it's the things that are competing with our ability to be present one with another. And I think we weren't designed to live in a world where we're trying to do 1,000 things and manage 1,000 things in our heads. We were designed to have a slower relational presence in the way we live our lives. And yes, I think modern society has tried to change that in such a way where we can do everything and
Right.
manage all of that, but it robs our peace when we embrace that as a lifestyle.
Right.
And so our goal is to just encourage you that, hey, we go through feeling overwhelmed, both Peter and I, and you felt it in your journey and you've felt it as you come into this December, that feeling. And it was awesome that you were willing to just say to Jack and I, as we were sitting, as like, this is what I feel going into this season. You're able to identify the why. And you know that the greatest gift that you can give isn't a perfect gift. It's not a great meal. It's your presence.
Right.
And the only way you can be present is to let go of so much and just trust and make good decisions and choose only what God's best is for your life. And there's great peace in that. Not necessarily easy, but there's great peace in that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you the final word on this podcast.
The final word.
The final word, yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we all experience being overwhelmed, and I have many times in my cancer journey. And I really appreciate what you talked about with making choices. And for me, it's about carving out that self-care space and to make sure that I get that. And even in the midst of a busy lifestyle and cancer journey, there are ways to still take care of myself and to do, for me, self-care is silence and solitude, walking, contemplative Bible reading, hanging out with life-giving people, gratitude journal. These are the things that I love that bring me joy and peace. So it's my choice. It's my issue. And I can choose to do what you said and just know presence is more important than presence.
Yeah, great. That's a great final word for this.
So
podcast.
Thanks, Sean. That was good.
Yeah, thanks everybody for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
We're grateful for just all of you guys who are paying attention to this podcast. You can find out a lot more, or you can see a lot more about what's going on in Cancer and Peace by going to our website, cancerandpeace.com, and there's all kinds of resources. So we'll see you at the next episode. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you.